Streamlined and powerful, these fighter planes were to confront each other in 1940 in a deadly duel for air superiority in the skies over southern England. They were to take part in the first all-air battle in history, the Battle of Britain. There was the Spitfire, perhaps the most glamorous of all the Second World War fighters. It was armed with 8 machine guns. It could fly at over 400 miles an hour. The Hurricane was the RAF's other main fighter. It may not have had the speed and glamour of the Spitfire, but it was to bear the brunt of the fighting in the Battle of Britain. The German counterpart was the Messerschmitt 109. Fast and well-armed, it had already proved its worth in the German blitzkrieg across Europe. Now it was being made ready for its stiffest challenge to date, to prepare the way for the invasion of Britain.
It
was the most modern fighter plane that there was in the whole world. First of all, it was a low-winged plane. Secondly, it had an enclosed cockpit. And thirdly, it was equipped with a retractable undercarriage. It was even as good as the first Spitfire, even a little better. And so everyone had the feeling, I am completely safe when formation flying.
The invasion could only succeed if the German Air Force won control of the skies. The Luftwaffe held the key to victory. Bombers spearheaded the attack. Slow and vulnerable, they had to rely on formations of fighters to protect them. The Germans started by bombing British shipping in the Channel, then moved against the radar installations, attacked the airfields, and finally turned on the cities.
Our main object was to get in quickly to shoot a bomber down before their 109s attacked us. The Luftwaffe escorting fighters were very good, and you didn't have much time to make your bomber kill. But our main objective always to get them on the way to target, to try and turn the raid away or inflict damage on the bombers. What is not generally appreciated is that if you did keep your finger on the button, your ammunition would expend itself in 14 seconds. You've got about 6 2-second bursts. And so I didn't start firing until I was very close. A lot of our tactics we had to pick up from the Germans as we went along. Initially, we had to fly with collars and ties and button coats and everything. You'd be surprised. And it was very hot, amongst other things. But gradually, we undid our collars for one very good reason, that we could turn our necks round and look behind us. We learnt to weave. Instead of flying into tight formation, we learnt to weave from the Germans again. The great memory I have is being very tired. We were on readiness from 3:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. On a bad day, we'd do 5 or 6 sorties against the enemy. We never had enough pilots. We had pilots, but they weren't trained. They only had flown, say, 8 hours on a Hurricane when they came to the squadron, which is like the average youngster today getting in a sports car and not knowing where the ghillie is.
Blue section only.
The RAF pilots were a cosmopolitan bunch, mainly British and Empire. They were reinforced by Czechs, Poles, and French. They were much less experienced than the Germans, but they had the vital advantage of operating over their own territory. Radar gave them warning of enemy attacks, and and allowed them to scramble at the right moment without having to spend too long in the air or burn too much fuel. But the RAF's losses were heavy. In a 10-day period in August, 90 pilots were killed and 60 wounded. But the German casualties were greater still. By September the 17th, they'd lost over 1,200 aircraft.
The Messerschmitt was a better fighter in one way, that you had a cannon firing through the propeller, which there meant if you got very close, you could really inflict damage with a better weapon. The most important role in the dogfight was a steep turn. You could outmaneuver anything in the Hurricane. It was the most marvelous airplane for that. You lost a lot of friends. This is the awful part of it. You become colder. You don't become so warm a person because you're afraid to make friends because you're going to lose them. And if you flew long enough and often enough, you gradually saw more.
On September the 17th, Hitler called off the invasion. The Luftwaffe continued their attacks for many more months, but they had lost the battle. Air power, as Mitchell and Trenchard predicted, had saved a country.
The Battle of Britain, it completely exonerated Trenchard, because he said all along there would come a day when this country faced air power, and he was right. Because whatever else you like about the Battle of Britain, you've got to remember one thing. It is the only battle ever fought in the air without the Army and Navy which changed a whole war.